Not exactly hidden. Forward, forward, forward. Wall, realigning. Forward, forward, forward. One of the simpler cleaning drones continues on its merry way through the air vents. Its magnetic treads keep it well attached to the wall itself. The drone does in fact have security systems. If it detects unusual amounts of heat, it sends an alert for the exterminators and security to both arrive. Someone sneaking around and vermin are both treated with equal force in this place. Unfortunately, it's simple, although reliable and robust. Programming is not equipped to deal with the sheer raving nonsense that is Koga in his dark blue vest. And the drone moves by, unaware that it's not only been completely avoided as a security system, but also subverted with small mushroom growths inside it. The inherent dust that is the shed skin of a living being gets everywhere after all, and that's fertilizer aplenty for the smaller and more frail growths. Sure, they were easy to crush and looked more like a bare fuzz, but they counted, and they could spread further spores which could convert into other types. Coming up on target A, Koga says into the bright forest. No point bothering with communicators and potentially interceptable signals when they have the space-time entanglement that is the wood. Although he can hear a bit of a debate in the background. What does one call the forest both bright and dark as a group? The woods is too plain. The sacred forest is pretentious. The great forest is just asking for some idiot to take it as a challenge and force either one to literally pick a battlecruiser's husk out of their metaphorical teeth, possibly both, simultaneously. Still, he needs to get some spores close to the pillar. Vernon needs to get closer for a proper study for their shutdown, and then there's a second thing he needs. A small wrapping currently tied around his hair. Inside is a series of protein shards, each no larger than a grain of sand and linked to a monitoring device. With that, they will have eyes and ears in the technical areas of the enemy fortress. However, first he needs to trace back all the security networks and cameras and sensors to find where everything is. Then he wraps a magic ribbon around an input cable. He nearly pauses as it hits him just how weird his life has become. Less than a decade ago, he was starting his first day as a salaryman and looking forward to working his way up a company, marrying a nice woman in it, settling down with children, and maybe finding the time for a hobby or two between the crunch hours. Instead, he was infiltrating a base so secure that federal gold deposits are public property by comparison, with the backup of a legion of magic ninjas, ancient sorcerers, super soldiers, and an army of alien beat cops and hackers. When he got back to another world, he would be retiring to spend some time with his Baroness lover, and then, with her blessing, getting to better know the elite royal guard known as a battle princess. If he watched the shonen, he would have called nonsense more than once. They're just a giant robot or a speech about friendship away from it being an end-of-season bit of silliness. Life truly is stranger than fiction. He comes to the end of the air duct and the setup is bolted in very securely and not something that can be removed without tripping a sensor. So he does the next best thing and infuses his breath with the flexibility and adaptivity of the bright forest. A stream of spores erupt from his mouth, each too small to be detected on camera or with the naked eye, and they dance far further than they should and with far more accuracy. Breath after breath is exhaled and the swarm of spores dances. He's close to where the pillar is now, but it's not in sight. Not from his vantage point in the vent and not when he projects his sight through the spores. Has it been entirely plastered over? He can feel the thing's axiom presence like he's standing on a giant guitar. The pillar is one of the strings vibrating good and hard. So now that he's right up near it, it's actually hidden. But it should be in arm's reach. Why is it not? They've walled it in, haven't they? Why though? Without tritite as a component of those walls, it can still be felt. It's annoying. Or do the rich and shameless just not like the look of Kutha and tritite? Too plebeian a metal for their tastes. Well, it should be visible from these back rooms at least. He exhales another spore-filled breath, and this time directs it more like a spear than a cloud. It slams into the wall he can sense is closest to the pillar. It's plaster, basically mud. Well, too bad for the architects here, but mud does not stop a fungus from growing. Far from it, in fact. He links up little bits of water from the nearly unending rainfall over the bright forest into the tiny spores, and with the energy of axiom, the motes of shed skin cells in the dust of the air, and the humidity of rain on the other side of the planet, they grow. They grow inwards towards his goal, and then a sudden void is found. Further spores are spat out, and they land on Kutha. "Gotcha," he mutters to himself. The spores spread upwards and downwards, and the pillar shifts, and the spores near to it were broken down into atomic portions and then swept away. He has 10 minutes now. These things live on a timer. If it just self-cleansed, then it won't for another 10. The spores spread and fill around the pillar, and before he's half done, it cleanses itself again, and there are several patches, little bits in corners and at the edges. There is a series of rooms, 4 levels apart from each other for a total of the 20 floors in which it stretches. The octagon-shaped pillar is covered in intricate carvings with the tiny markings that show the signs of it being done by hand. There's a sort of inconsistency to hand-carved objects, an artistic failure of the symmetry. Still, job 1 done. Target A has plenty of small, nigh-invisible growths near it and in places where it's not going to clean itself. Now to move on to the next one. Another exhale of spores, and he sends them another way, this time deliberately seeking a camera. It doesn't take long, and he wraps spores around its casing. He looks out through them and figures out which way the lens and therefore visual range is oriented. All of that means there's a very small blind spot right under the camera. Cameras, actually, as there are 2 in there and they're looking in different directions. Spores drop to the floor and he's suddenly there, which wasn't something he could put off for much longer. That cleaning drone was coming back after all. He focuses and reaches out to sense with his axiom as he exhales more spores and blows them down the hallway. Through them he can see the next cameras and wafts them under the electronic eye. An eye he is suddenly standing directly under and out of its sight. "Did you feel that?" someone asks nearby, and Koga raises an eyebrow. "You feel everything, Alana. Be specific." The first woman is answered, and Koga nods to himself. 2 guards, one of them with the mental enhancement abilities. There's something going on, something. I don't know. I sense danger, but not, Alana answers, and there's a few steps. Koga deliberately grows more spores under the camera and fades away back into the bright forest. His focus is intense as he goes through the mudras and keeps his mind sharp. A Tret woman, Alana presumably, is examining the area he was in. Guards with precognition. That's not going to be easy to get around, but there are ways around it. I need to move faster than the spores and more freely, but I can't stealth normally. The paths are blocked and few in number. Koga says to himself as a tiny insect, no bigger than his thumbnail with its wings fully extended, lands within his right hand. It is thumbing with the power of the bright forest. It has partaken of the mushrooms and is one with the whole. Little moth, you shall be my eyes and ears in a place most terrible. Take flight and guide the way. Then the tiny creature is upon the smaller spores. It flutters past the camera and is so small that it's no more than a tiny speck on the screen in the security office. And there's your great danger, Alana, a bug. Heh, look at the fluttery thing. Does it even have a mouth to bite with? The second guard, a Nagasha asks. She has numerous cases along her tail to show racks upon racks of weapons. There are clearly enough blades there for just about anything. The deep crag Nagasha's rattle shakes a few times and a blade takes a swing at the insect. Oh, don't run. I just want some entertainment. Thankfully, An insect that small is hard to hit for a reason. The oncoming wake of something swinging at it outright pushes the moth out of the way of the weapons, and it flutters away frantically. The whole time, Koga is gently feeding energy to sustain and strengthen the creature. It wouldn't do for his new friend to be undone for the sake of some sadist's entertainment. The tiny thing flutters away from the two, and there's a distinct series of markings along the doors, something to pay attention to, but not something he fully understands. At least, he can't read the symbols. They're probably some glyph-based language. He can, however, sense axiom through the little moth, and there's a pattern he's looking for, a very specific one. It takes several floors for the tiny, fluttering insect to draw close to either a server bay or a security room, so it flitters down to the ground and literally walks under the closed door. At its size, the gap between the door and floor is easily large enough for the moth to just skitter, though. Any room in existence would be gigantic to the moth, but this one is a bit bigger than expected. It does, however, have the telltale sign of many different screens. Koga ensures that the tiny moth makes a point of fluttering up above the sightline of the staff member in the room. The woman seems supremely bored, so she's wonderfully inattentive. This isn't the main security room, though, which means that this is a tertiary target that will lead to the security room. He just needs to be patient. He guides the moth to a corner out of the woman's casual sightline and has a spore appear at its feet. Then it's vanished back into the bright forest as the tiny growth takes root and the waiting game begins. It's not too long until the woman stands up and leaves, likely for a bathroom break. That's when Koga simply appears in the room and begins to scan it. First thing he does is wrap the tiny ribbon around a major network cable. The other sorcerers pick up on this and inform the hackers in their operation to start monitoring. He takes a few pictures with the communicator he brought with him this time and runs a scan through the room. Then, as the door starts to open, he's gone. Oh no! The security guard is taking a piss. How terrible, how deadly! The arsenal-wielding Deep Crag Nagasha taunts. But there was something here. I felt it leave, Alana protests. The only thing that's left is what respect I had for you, you stupid spazoid. Are you sure you're not going Jingay on me? The Nagasha demands and gets a harsh glare from the Tret. If you two idiots are done bitching, I need to get back to my post. The security monitor outright snarls at them both before re-entering the compromised room and sitting back down in her chair. Koga reappears in the room just long enough for Alana to shoulder the door open in a fit of completely justified paranoia and scaring the daylights out of the other guards when she starts looking for someone that is on the other side of the planet. The fact that the person she's looking for has a smile that redefines smug is entirely unrelated.